Good evening and welcome to Connecting Point. I'm Jim Madigan. The Salvation Army Red Kettle is an international sign of the holiday season. It dates to 1891 when a Salvation Army officer in Oakland, California asked donors to keep the pot boiling for those who might otherwise be forgotten. Tonight, Connecting Point correspondent Carolee McGrath talks with Springfield Salvation Army Branch Major John Ferreira and Rudi Scherff, former owner of the Student Prince restaurant, whose own father was a recipient of Salvation Army help during World War II.
Christmas Eve, 1944, my dad was a sergeant in the American Army. He was born in Germany, emigrated to America in 1934. Then he was drafted into the American Army, and his unit was on the troop ship Crown Prince Leopold. It was torpedoed in the English Channel. 400 or more men lost their lives. My dad, being my dad, made it to shore. And probably contrary to the good Major's faith, he had a bottle of scotch with him. That was my dad. And they landed on the shore, and they were greeted not like other soldiers earlier had been at Normandy with gunfire, but with the Salvation Army with blankets and coffee. And my dad died 19 years ago. And in as well, there was some fairly complex things with the restaurant and so on, but the last bequest was to the Salvation Army, $5,000. Thanks for the coffee.
I mean, that's a kind of beautiful story, life-changing story, you know, and then of course he raises you and such a successful person that you've become, and now you're giving back as well. Does that, is that really what the mission of the Salvation Army is really to lift people up? And you can see it with Rudi's story, how powerful that is.
Well, it's seeing people who have needs. I mean, you would help people who were in distress, or in situations not of their own making, or even if they're in situations of their own making. I mean, the first thing that you would want to do is to alleviate their immediate needs. Mm-hmm. which is not unusual just to us. I mean, before you could ever speak to somebody about philosophy or spiritual matters or anything like that,
you have to feed them first.
You would have to take care of their immediate needs, and so, and that's the teaching of Jesus Christ too. That we would, his statement was, "What you do for the least of these, you've done for me." So it's part of our mission that we would help people, regardless of their beliefs or regardless of their situations or anything like that. We're not angels, and so. Sometimes we say and do things that we may regret later, or that people find to have a difference with, but our main thrust is to help people who are in need, regardless of who they are.
So when people go to the stores this holiday season and they see those red kettles, why is it so important that even if they just have a little to give, that they give?
Well, it's going to bring out the Christmas spirit. I worked quite a bit with the Salvation Army, with the local chapter corps, after the 2011 tornado, and the motivation, I mean, other charities had people that worked to help people. Right. Salvation Army had people that lived to help people. They worked day to night. They inspired me. I beat up our suppliers. No, I need 5 cases of bottled water. You're not going to charge me for it. And they were concerned about some old lady in the hills of Munson without water, and it was very, very impressive.
Now they also, you also have a really interesting program for the youth. Can you describe that as well?
Well, that's our Bridging the Gap program, which is administrated by Anthony Falvo, he's a fairly well-known guy in Springfield, and he's a very compassionate man and very good at what he does for us. And if a teen actually, a first-time offender, as long as it's not a severely violent crime or something of that nature, gets diverted by the district attorney's office into this diversion program that comprises anger management and life skills and how to interact with people without fear and causing fear, and how to do their schoolwork and just different situations, a situational kind of program. And if they complete that program, the 12-week program, and they remain crime-free for a year and return to school or stay in school, then it's as if they didn't commit the crime. It's expunged from the, they don't have a record actually, because they never went into the court system. They were diverted.
And have you personally seen a change in kids that you've worked with?
We have personal relationships with some of the kids. Some of the kids finish the program and go on their way, and other kids stay with us and come to our Friday night program and other things that we do. Some go their way and come back and visit with us, and some even come back and work for us in the program itself.
Okay. And you also have a utility assistance program as well?
Yeah, that's a statewide program the Salvation Army runs in partnership with the utilities and some businesses called Good Neighbor Energy, and that is a program for working people. Actually, the economic, their income has to be at a certain level, not under, but over, to qualify for it. The United Farm Workers take care of low income in Springfield, and the Salvation Army takes care of the working.
And so where can we find you during the holiday season?
Well, we'll be ringing bells at the fort in December, at their Stop and Shops, and at Walmarts, and Geisler's, and Agawam. Those are the places that the Salvation Army in Springfield is allowed to.
And often Macy's department store?
Macy's has a national agreement with the Salvation Army. We'll work out whether or not we can stand outside their door at the mall.
And there's also online giving this year as well. That people
Yes,
can look
you'll
into.
also find ringers at the Holyoke Mall, but that would be the Holyoke branch of the Salvation Army.
Okay. And Rudi, if you were to just, tell people just how important this mission is, how would you convince them?
They do an awful lot of good stuff. The pay of the administration of the Salvation Army is ridiculously low compared to other charities. Their overhead is minimal, and they're just a tremendous charity. They're very broad-based. Their programs are without distinction of religion, race, orientation, and they have a lot of things that they do, a lot of people they help, and they're a totally dedicated organization.
Thank you both so much for joining us, and happy holidays, and we'll be looking for those red kettles outside the storefronts.
Thank you. Same to you.